Safety for what? Bloods.
It's to protect the errant shots through the southern boundary.
Oh, okay.
Mike, you might want to speak to that a little bit more than me. I wasn't involved with the safety aspect of
I
the
didn't know
wall.
what it was safety. It was safety.
Yeah,
for
yeah, so
water
it's safety from an errant shot as
or bad
opposed to
shot
water.
wall. Bad shot for bad shot.
How high is this wall?
Yeah, the
8
details. Is it 8
It's 8
feet
feet?
from the ground?
8 feet.
Okay.
There's
There's a detail here, right?
Yeah. That's it.
What is its width? About 6 by 6?
Yeah, it's a 6 by
It's
6.
approximately 6 inches wide, 6 by 6 post. It's very thin.
I'm interested in how high it is.
Yep, 8
8
feet.
feet.
I'm shooting at the top of the ridge. You can't, because
There's
there's gonna be blocked?
Yeah, there's a roof over
It
the,
hit the roof.
Yeah, there's a,
Okay,
yeah.
so this is to prevent you from shooting off the property?
Off to the right too much.
Get the people on the golf course.
Let me
I have a
address that a
question.
little bit. When the safety expert looked at our range and our protocols for safety, et cetera, he identified a small area on the south boundary as a potential possibility where there was no barrier to prevent a shot from going off. And that's why he developed the safety wall as he did. He also positioned the safety wall, that's his positioning, not our local engineers, keeping in mind that it's in a floodway, and which is why we have the chevron design to maintain open spaces for water flow. From a safety standpoint, it could be a solid wall, but that doesn't make sense in the location it's at. There's also, well, that basically is why it's where it is. There's that one area in our southern boundary that could be exposed, and he wanted to shut that off.
That's a good explanation. Thank you.
question on the floodway down there,
Sure.
where you're removing, you said,
In this area?
yeah, that area. You're reducing that by,
The average is 6 inches. It's about a foot in through here, and then as you come up the grade, it goes to 0. So it's an average about 6 inches, but it's extended over a very long stretch of the floodway as opposed to a short little piece.
does that have any impact on the property to the south, north?
Tom could probably talk to the grades beyond this point a little bit, but I believe that they just come back, it comes back to existing
Yeah,
grade
we're
right at
just-
the property
We're
line.
matching grade right at the property line.
Okay, so it doesn't change that.
Well, lower flows would have a tendency to deflect back towards the wetlands as they get to the end of this area. What, under the base flood, this whole area is underwater. One last thing I wanted to add to, that this methodology in my analysis has been through several reviews. The Connecticut DEP looked at it, and also the Army Corps in their review process also examined the effect on the base flood elevation. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jerry.
I guess the priority obviously is keeping water off the range for deflection purposes.
Yes.
Does flood mitigation in any way help less flooding in the buildings? Because I know that you've experienced quite a bit of flooding in the indoor range as well.
No,
No?
no, no. Within the scheme of things, this is a small place.
Yeah.
The whole floodplain is 2,000 feet wide across here.
Okay.
Not much you can do.
No.
When it floods, it floods. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So is there anything else you would like to have on the record or add to the record? Hiram?
Just want to be clear with the commission, in your packages and in our flood regulations, I just want to be clear that the commission understands the issue here and gets the proper questions, answers the proper questions on the record. In Article 8 and N3, within the designated floodplain encroachments resulting from fill, new construction, or improvements as defined in this section involving an increase in footprint of the structure shall be prohibited unless the applicant provides zoning commission certification by the engineer that the encroachment shall not result in any increase in the base flood elevation. So I think it should be important that the applicant puts that on the record, no increase in the base flood elevation. There, I believe, when staff looked at this, that the, Mr. Reynolds' report identifies a 0.42 foot increase in the base flood elevation. I'd just like to get that clarified. He did mention that there was an 84 cubic yard net increase in flood storage, but I'd just like to make sure that the commission is clear about whether this results in any increase in the base flood elevation or not. That's question one. The second thing that I had was that the water holding capacity of the floodplain shall not be reduced by any form of development unless such reduction is A, compensated for by deepening or widening of the floodplain, which I believe we've seen here this evening. B, is on-site, or if adjacent property owners grant easements to the town of Simsbury, doesn't appear to be necessary in this particular case. C, is within the same hydraulic reach and volume not previously used for flood storage, and I think that's been shown as well. And then D is hydraulically comparable and incrementally equal to the theoretical volume of flood water at each elevation up to including the 100-year flood. And then E, finally, has unrestricted hydraulic connection to the same waterways and water body. I think most of those have been answered. So it really goes back to my first question. I just want to be sure that the commission's clear and that the applicant has the opportunity to put on the record that there is no increase in the base flood elevation as a result of this work. That's basically it.
Can the applicant speak to you here? Because I believe you just said that it does actually increase the work.
That's what I believe the report shows. Now, if that's incorrect or if we've misinterpreted it, I just need the applicant to show us where in the report that that's correct.
Yes, Martha Dean for the applicant, Mark Reynolds here. I believe that the section, that Article 7, M3A does not apply here. It says specifically that requirements within a designated floodplain, encroachments resulting from fill, new construction, or substantial improvements as defined in 44 CFR Part 59.1 involving, this is the qualification, involving an increase in footprint to the structure shall be prohibited unless. We don't have an increase in footprint to any structure here. This section just simply, in our view, is not applicable. When you go to the next page to section 4B, permitted uses which may be permitted as a special exception after a public hearing. 4 is specifically for filling, paving, and grading of land. It's nothing about increasing the footprint of a structure. Filling, paving, and grading of land provided that such filling is an accessory to an abutting permitted use or a use permitted in the floodplain zone. Clearly these are. And B, the flow of the river, so there are two requirements in B, the flow of the river or its related stream shall not be retarded. We've heard testimony that it will not be retarded. And the storage capacity that alleviates flooding elsewhere is not reduced. And we've actually heard testimony, and it's in Mr. Reynolds' report, that flood storage capacity in this project is actually increased. I think there's just a misunderstanding on the applicability of 3A. It's clearly related only to an increase in a footprint of a structure. If there are specific questions for Mr. Reynolds.
I'm on the same page with that analysis of the regulations. I can speak to the specific sentence in my report. What I was attempting to do with that analysis and that part of my report is to provide an estimate of the effect on the gross cross-sectional area of this little piece. It's not to say that the base flood in the area would be increased by that amount. What it is to say is that you would detect a ripple, if you will, in fact, in the area of this. And I say in my report, which I don't have now for some reason. Do you have it there? Yes. That analysis is specific to the cross-section at the site, and that it'll have a negligible localized effect on the base flood. I don't think that you could calculate it, and I know that within the context of a flood insurance study that was based on a cross-section here and a cross-section here, that type of activity is not even included in the analysis. So if I was to rerun that, you'd see that same thing. You wouldn't have any change. So that's what leads me to that conclusion. So the 0.42 feet is provided as an exhibit of the maximum effect that it could occur immediately, instantaneously at that spot.
Did that answer your question then?
Yeah, I just want to get on the record,
Okay. Yeah.
really clear, because as the reports were put in place, and I completely understand what Attorney Genie said, so I just want to be really clear that the applicant has had every opportunity to address that issue should questions arise in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
From a legal standpoint, we're not really qualified to make that determination. Do we need town's attorney to review that? Just that piece of it? Or in your opinion?
The explanation sounds logical and reasonable to me, and I don't know that you would differ from that opinion that was just expressed.
That's fair, and it sounded good to me too. I just don't want to make a decision and set a precedent.
While we're on the hydraulics, someone that's been involved with this for a number of years, raise their hand at the club. I mean, how often do you guys get flooded out?
Every year.
It varies. Last year, we didn't get flooded. Some years, we might have two.
Is it mostly in the area of the parking lot?
What happens there is there's almost no flow where our building is, and it sort of backs in.
From the state police
and
side?
and fills up. So, the normal, if there is such a thing as a normal flood at our place, it's probably from 2 inches to 16 inches in the building. Would be it.
And does it get up into the outside range area at all?
Well, yeah, if the range is flooded when we get wet in our clubhouse.
Okay. And does it come back in from where the state police is, or does it,
Well, the river is flowing, of course, to our west on the other side of the road, so there's no
Right.
direct flow from that. But if it does rise high enough, it comes into our south across the golf course.
okay.
It comes in actually behind our berm, the end of our range.
Because I've noticed that at the end of the street, it's, where it floods there quite often, it seems to come in from the north back into the area rather than from the south. And I just wondered if there's anything different with your
All right, do we have any other questions from the commissioner as it relates to the application? Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak on behalf of or against this application? Have we gotten everything on the record that?
I believe so, unless the applicant has anything else they want to add.
So I'd be looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
second.
Seconded by Mr. Cosgrove. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, it's a public hearing closed. All right. So discussion and possible action on any agenda item, including application 15-10 of Michael M. Palmer, excuse me, agent for Medicon Gun Club. So let's consider that application first. David?
Yeah, I think they've done an in-depth job of analyzing where floodwaters go, what the impact is on their site, and Corps of Engineers and DEEP have both weighed in and put conditions on their approvals. And so I'm pretty comfortable with what I've seen as it stands.
Okay. Any other comments?
I'm comfortable with Councilor Dean's explanation of original concern.
So, any other discussion? Do we have a motion?
Move we accept.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Peterson. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. All right?
Thank you.
Good luck. This is what draws a crowd in Simsbury. Horses and guns.
Isn't there something we don't?
And gas stations.
Some towns are roosters. Some towns are
Oh,
roosters.
yeah. The lead weight.
Oh, okay.
Those are all members of the.
Oh, yeah.
Plastic or anything.
Turtles and salamanders are on their own.
Yeah.
Can I ask this now? Is anyone carrying that came in tonight?
Is anybody carrying?
Carrying a
Oh,
weapon?
carrying.
No, we don't have a gun.
Can't in the public. I don't think you're allowed in this building.
Enter the building.
Well, concealed. We wouldn't know anyway.
Commissioners too?
Not asking.
Get on here.
All right. Moving on, item number 5, application number 15-11, Christopher Millard, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Sorry. Phase Zero Design Agent, Grove Property Fund, Drake Hill LLC owner for a site plan amendment for a sign permit. Is that what we're doing next? Yeah, sign permit on the property located at 720 Hot Meadow Street, Assessors Map G10, Block 227, Lot 001-2. Zones Simsbury Center 1, Simsbury Center 3. Mr. Millard.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Millard, as you mentioned. Here to represent my client, Grove Properties, and we're looking at 720 Hot Meadow Street, which is the Cannon Building in Simsbury. Basically, they have about 800 square feet inside the building that's going to be leased out to a new tenant. In doing so, they want to renovate the exterior of the building and renovate the patio, add on some guardrails and add on some awnings with signage. Basically, this first plan depicts the 800 square foot space to the south side of the building. And then immediately adjacent to that is this patio space, which is almost equal in size. The thought is to surround the patio, which has no guardrails now, with a new wrought iron black rail. And then that new railing would also replace the existing handrails that are there now that are poor shape. So those would be removed and replaced with a new railing system to match. The exterior of the building would be modified slightly to the south side only, and it would receive new awnings. The awnings would contain the signage for the space as well. So these images, you could see the existing building here all remains as is, and then the patio gets the new guardrail, and then actually I should say 3 awnings. 2 awnings over each window, and then a semicircular awning over the front door. On the awnings, obviously there's new signage. The building now only has about 7 square foot of signage on it, but it does have a monument sign. The new signage that we're proposing is about 36 square feet altogether. The monument sign, the existing sign, and the new signage is around 123 square feet, which is equivalent to the building length, linear footage, street frontage, I should say. The existing lighting will remain the same. The existing building facade remains the same. It's just the application of the new fabric with the signage on it. With that, open up for
Just a couple questions. Are you gonna use the patio for anything other than just a patio? I mean, is it gonna have tables or there's no food service or what are you thinking?
I plan.
Yeah, you should say your name, Bill.
I need your name.
Bill Seelig. Bill Seelig is the planned tenant for this space.
Right.
I do plan on using that space for 3 purposes. It's gonna be my new design studio for the jewelry store. I'm gonna be selling antiques and gifts. Primarily, the gifts are gonna be local, high-quality craftsmen. And as part of that, I want to be able to, when the weather is good, use that patio to put special events on. So yes, I want to be able to use that patio with tables and chairs. And eventually, I would like to be able to probably, if I can get the design right, use a couple of tents there that would be temporary. When there's if I have a weekend show, I'd put the tents up and then they would come down. I think it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm going to use it basically as the gift shop, a demonstration area for the jewelry store, and the design studio. We're trying to differentiate ourselves and let people know that we do a lot of design work. And we're going to try to tie this in with other local craftsmen and have some fun there.
Right.
Today we're here about the sign, right? That's it.
Well, we're gonna approve the railing, I believe, right, or not?
Is that part of the sign?
There's a proposal, the proposal is to, the awnings, the sign, the railings, and as I understand, the repair of the patio with a deck, I'm sorry, of brick.
Couldn't an applicant fix or repair the deck without us?
Sure.
Well, it's a couple of interesting things, you know, it's a historic building, you know? I think that everybody needs to get a look at it. You might think it's fine, the design review board might have an issue with that, but so far they're fine with this plan as well. So if they came in and it was a safety issue or something that was required, I'd still have a question about whether you ought to look at it and approve it or not. It's an important building in the town center.
Well, the railing looks handsome from what I saw this at design review. And just for the record, the issue of the handicap ramp that a couple of much previous iterations. So there is handicap access through the building.
That's correct. We spoke with the town building official about the handicap ramp. The opposite side of the building is fully handicap accessible, and you can pass through the building to the tenant space with no problem. The interior of the building is considered a multi-tenant space or a public space, so it's always going to be open while the building is open and occupied. So if one of the tenants closes and the other one's still open, the public corridor will still remain open.
Is that existing glass line at the ground level there? Is that what's existing?
Are you referring to the height?
Glass line.
Yeah, all the windows on the building remain as is.
And how are the awnings anchored?
I believe they're usually just fastened, masonry fastened through the brick.
The only reason I bring it up, because in previous applications, there was a concern about the medallion over the,
Yeah.
and I just, I don't know if that piece in particular is of interest to the town, or if it would be fastened literally into that centerpiece,
Is
so
the
to
medallion
speak.
remaining or not?
Yeah,
It does remain, and it fits perfectly within it. If you go out there today, you can actually see brackets that go all the way around it.
okay.
So it appears there used to be an awning on there, and it just was removed. Most likely, we would have to remove those brackets, put new
Right.
ones in place.
Somewhere in the back of my mind, there was something about setbacks. Is this a conforming building as far as the setbacks go?
Yeah, it is, and there's nothing here that changes that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We talked about setbacks last time, I think
Yeah.
we're trying to get the front of the building at a different elevation and so on, but that issue's not,
Okay.
Yeah,
Will the setbacks still be
it's
in
fine.
effect with the tents, the proposed tents?
Yes.
The
Yeah.
tents would have to stay on the patio.
Yeah. Unless the commission decide to prove otherwise, we could do that. We're talking about special permit alteration a little late earlier on, and if that's a special permit item, we could talk about that in the new regulations. That might be a way to change that too, so. One small thing Chris mentioned, he said, I think he said awning over the front door. I just want to be clear. I think what he meant was the awning over the south facing
Side
door
door.
shown on the plan, just, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
You're correct. We're not doing anything to the front facade of the building. I refer to it as the front door because that's the main entrance for the tenant, but it is the side door.
Just to be clear, yeah, thanks.
Okay.
What does the text band say?
I'm sorry?
The center awning says the studio, and then the text band, if I recall correctly, it says Bill Seeley Jewelers on it.
So it's just an identifier.
And then in the two side awnings, the Sealy logo is in the middle of that.
Square footage is all right? Or-
Yes.
And you're gonna occupy what used to be the sunroom.
Yeah.
And also,
I'm gonna call it the garden room.
I call it the place where I left my blood for years.
You can still do that.
Yeah, but this other space that's shown here for another, is that for another possible tenant besides you? Or are you gonna have a second space?
There's one space which would be built.
Okay, this is basically you're in the sunroom. That's it.
That's correct.
Sunroom and the patio.
The patio is for your exclusive use?
Future tenant is not you.
No, the future tenant is Sealy Jewelers, and that's how we've identified it. This space to the north, I believe this is the existing waiting room that's utilized by the doctor's offices.
Okay.
And then this space here is the exterior patio.
Right.
And just to clarify, in case anybody didn't hear, it's for their exclusive use, that patio. So you could show artwork out there, for example?
I hope to have sculpture and art, stained glass, some really nice things.
It's nice.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is not a public hearing, so
Do we have to have one?
no, we do not. So we can consider this tonight. So I'd be looking for a motion.
There's no unified sign plan with any other part of the building on this?
No, there really isn't. The design review board looked at that earlier this evening and felt that the canopy, the awnings that were in keeping with the rest of the signage were acceptable.
And the colors are,
The awning's black, and then the text on the awning is a cream color to match the...
okay, and the sign that's out in front, the landmark sign, or whatever you call it, that's what color?
That would stay the same. It's a
Yeah, we're not touching that,
What color?
unfortunately. I don't recall the color.
a
that's on
sand
that.
color, I would say.
I believe you'd have to match up with that, right? It's the same building?
I have a real hard time with the colors. I think that there are enough precedents around where if you find it acceptable and it's subtle, I think on this historic building it's probably acceptable. I would have a hard time telling an applicant that they need to change the colors of one sign to comply with the rest. I know that the overall sign regulation says they're supposed to match. There's a lot of discussion about that at DRB in past years as to about whether they all ought to be the same or they all simply be compatible. I guess that would be a better term then. So,
But I believe the regulation is a zoning regulation, not a design review regulation.
yeah, I just,
There's no such thing.
We don't have any color.
Guideline.
Yeah, we do.
What?
Well, I think the thing that talks about the sign, it said there's supposed to be some uniformity.
If there's no uniform sign plan, then we don't have.
But everything
to
has to have a uniform sign.
say.
Well,
You
yeah.
said you did.
you look at Fitzgerald's and you look at Beach Wave and you look at Webster Bank, and there are a number of different signs that go across the front. And the determination, as I understand it in the past, has been they're compatible or acceptable, that's okay. If there were red flashing neon or something like that that was incompatible, that would not be in keeping with the overall sign plan. We can't require them to be all the same color, or all the same size, or all the same.
Well, we have for years.
I'm just suggesting to you that that probably wouldn't stand up if somebody had an issue with it, that's all.
That Pandora's box has been opened. The genie is out of the bottle.
Yeah. I move we accept application 1511 of Christopher Millard as presented.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Doyle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You are approved. All right.
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you.
September.
All right, we didn't ask. Great, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, discussion of new and ongoing projects.
Anybody have any questions?
What's he here for?
I'm just kidding.
Just in
case, I'm here just in case.
There was one.
Next meeting.
I actually had a thought about the application for liquor permit or special exceptions for annual events. And independently, Dave called me to talk about it. It does seem to me like, well, let's take Ron's Run for the Roses. We've done that, I think, 4 or 5 years in a row.
Yep.
There ought to be a streamlined process for doing that and a lower cost. I mean, somebody's trying to raise, $5,000 and we're charging them $400 in fees and time and attorneys, all the rest of that just seems sort of counterproductive for what is. Maybe we do it once and then we could annually renew it for the same people administratively or something. So as we think of the regulations, I'd be all in favor of that. So that's.
First-time applicants have to come
First-time
before.
applicants come talk about it
Right.
because that's a new venue that allows, do we do public hearings for those? We do, don't we?
If it involves alcohol and a special permit, we require by law to
Yeah,
do
so
that.
as we rewrite the regs, let's look at that. So whenever they use a new venue, like there was one, Town Farm started doing this a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that we look at that.
Okay.
The second is, if you look at Marshall's business, that's a business. And this is 5th or 6th year that he's done this. It seems odd to me that he has to come and get a zoning permit, even if it's every year. And I would say the same thing for the Performing Arts Center. This is, if they can get the liquor license from that granting authority, and their business is to have people gather anyway in that venue, it just seems like not the best use of our time or their time and money to have to come get that thing.
I think a lot of these, Rob, are sort of residual effects from past ways of viewing the things. There have been, lots of discussions about alcohol in this commission, and previous commissioners, as some of you may know, were very stringent in terms of how they applied the regulations. But I'm happy to look at different ways to do that. I think, as you said, if an applicant were to come in and had done it previously and there were no issues, no problems, that would certainly be a way we could address it. If the first time through the process they go through that special permit, and the commission could consider as part of that this would continue to exist in that particular form going forward, I think we can do that. As I told Dave earlier this evening, I want to run that obviously by town attorney, make sure we can do that, but I'm happy to take a look at that.
I think if it goes too long without them coming back, or they start adding dates and things just aren't properly kind of looked over, particularly with the alcohol events.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they should come back every year, but if it mirrors previous applications.
Well, you do it at the Historical Society, right, Kevin?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
just.
those are typically, if they're inviting their members, the way we view that is a bit differently in that that's not really a public function.
I understand.
And so that's the
Well,
one
there's
way.
two different ones. There's public ones and then there's, private membership.
Yeah, and we can take a look at trying to figure out how to word that
But
appropriately.
it does get expensive for a nonprofit for.
That's part of my concern. The other is that if someone has been a responsible contributor, and they've been through the process and they've done it, I can't imagine somebody have trouble with Ron's Run for the Roses. On the other hand, if somebody, the fire department had an open house and wanted to, have a potluck dinner and sell beer and wine. So that's, I think it was appropriate that they came the first time. I don't know if they've done that again.
Sure, we can take a look at that.
My
Absolutely.
only concern would be if there are incidents
Of course.
that result that now, would we have some way of making sure they had to come back the next year, or
Yeah, I would-
not automatically just
Yeah.
Well, they
roll it
always have,
over?
yeah, but they always have to get a public gathering permit, and that goes through the chief of police and the zoning
Yeah.
enforcement officer.
Okay,
And it's in front of everybody, the selectmen even sign off on it now.
okay.
So it's not like you're gonna
So
get
so
away with.
let's look at it in the broader context of all that it takes for these people to put this gathering together.
Absolutely.
Another question before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
St. Mary's.
Yes.
When can
Where are we on the
expect-
time frame?
Well, actually, that came up earlier this evening as well, and I think that, you may recall that they really couldn't say we had a plan until the Archbishop and the Archdiocese had sort of blessed it. My understanding is that
Really?
sometime this summer, by the end of the summer, we should see something back here, as soon as they get their approvals in place. Exactly what that's gonna look like, I think we were looking at 2 or 3 different potential alternatives, as I recall, buildings located in various different locations. So I suspect that by the end of the summer, we'll probably see that back.
Didn't they agree to a date by which they'd come back?
We did, we put it in there,
I think it was about 6
end
to
of
9
August, September.
End of August, September sticks in my mind. but-
Yeah.
I think that's about right. I think it's end of summer, right in there.
And they started moving dirt at Ethel Walker.
Man, big time, big time.
They didn't waste any time.
No.
No, they were right there, and absolutely. moving that.
Anybody else breaking ground on any of the other major projects?
Well, depending upon whether you think it's major or not, the 155 Hop Meadow, the convenience store pool barn, we have a pre-construction meeting with them on Wednesday.
Oh, good.
We expect that probably within a week or two after that, they'll be moving that forward as well. So, rest of everybody else is in DOT and going through the State Traffic Commission, State Traffic
Is that
Administration.
why is in traffic, or where?
That's what they tell me.
Well, this is more of a minor issue, but one I brought up in the previous meeting about the lighting at the Pride Station on the south end.
Yep.
Did they do anything about
We talked to
that?
them about that. Is it still?
No, actually, I thought it was better,
Yeah.
the last few times at night that I've been by, and I
Just
actually thought
curious
if something had been done, because I found myself focusing on the light so much, not necessarily that it was
I think
blinding
I
me,
actually
but-
thought they did something.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they did too.
We did ask them, but they've been pretty responsive.
Yeah.
So
They're pretty good.
we think it's better. If it isn't, just let us know.
Okay, thanks.
So you got nothing for me to tell my wife about the big Y.
I don't have anything new to tell you.
Anything else?
I'm not supposed to discuss stuff of these matters of this nature outside of this room, sir.
So public,
Yeah. All right, David.
Move we adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.